this role of the grazing animal, this is something I've of course gotten to understand much, much more in the last, 18 years living on our ranch. And I've continued to visit a lot of ranches in the last, couple of decades. And when I wrote the first Defending Beef book, I thought I kind of knew the issue and knew what I wanted to say, but I learned a huge amount through the research that I did for the book, and same thing for the second book. So just understanding how important cattle are, or all the grazing animals, but I especially focus on cattle as kind of a replacement for a disappeared wild grazing animal that was once an incredibly important part of so much of the Earth's ecosystems, and how there's a concept that Charles Massey talks about in his book. He's an Australian sheep herder, but also philosopher, really interesting, smart man who wrote a book called The Call of the Read Warbler. And he
Mhm.
talks about something called landscape function, which is essentially that every natural area has a way that it would that's meant to function in terms of, is it a grassland? Is it a wooded land? Does it have streams? Does it have, springs? Does it have ponds or lakes, or how is it supposed to look there? And that basically humans have, the sort of typical human attitude has been like, well, we can just come in and do whatever we want. We have bulldozers, we have chemicals, we have chainsaws, right? But what he argues is that if we really want to farm for the long term, farm and ranch for the long term in such a way that we're producing healthy food and also really keeping the earth healthy so that we get we can continue to do it. We're regenerating the earth, not destroying all of its resources. That we have to understand what the landscape function is. We have to know what this land that we're on, wherever we are in the earth, on the planet, we have to know what this land should be wherever we are, and try to make our systems sort of compatible with that kind of function that the landscape's supposed to be having. And that when we do that, we can produce food in a totally different way. So I love his book called The Reed Warbler and his message. And he's one of the many people I've learned a whole bunch about. So about all this from. So basically, I wanted to write the book because I recognized that there was a totally different message in the mainstream conversation, and especially in the environmental community, about beef and cattle than what I was seeing, the reality I was seeing on the landscape and on farms and ranches that I was visiting. And I wanted, because I have this background that kind of comes from all these different places that are, kind of at odds with each other a lot of times, I wanted to connect these conversations and these people and these ideas and say, there's a lot of commonality here, and there's a lot to learn from each other. And we have a common goal of, really figuring out how to live on this earth and create healthy food, and in such a way that we're not destroying the earth. And, that's kind of the goal of my book.